Jay here, Stretford, Paddock. This is it. This is the big one. Manchester United travelling to Brighton for the early kickoff on Saturday. Joining me, as always, is Mr. Joe Smith. Joe, I mean, the season's here now, isn't it? We're right in the middle of the Barclays. Well, we're not in the middle at the beginning, but you get me.
We're amongst it, aren't we?
We're amongst it.
The thing is, Jay, once you're in a crowd or once you're in a forest, you might as well be in the middle. Do you know what I mean? There's trees on all sides.
Exactly.
The season is surrounding us. We're in the middle of it. Brighton, Bright Town, presumably from the Old English. The seagulls, as they're known. One of my three favourite native British birds, up there with the swift and the kingfisher. They're a formidable opponent. I don't know, I'm talking like this. I'm excited for this game. And
Joe's lost his head already.
Sorry,
we're 2 games into the season, and Joe's head has completely gone.
Sorry about that. I just became Thomas Cromwell for a minute there. No, they're a really difficult side to face. I don't know what we're going to see from them with a new manager, but we'll get into all of that. I think United need to, though, show that we can't. Last few times we played Brighton, especially away, we've been like the weak little team trying everything we can not to lose.
Yep.
It needs to feel a little bit different this time.
It does. We have got some new players, some new faces who we expect to feature. We'll get to our predicted 11s in a minute, but we expect them to feature at some point during the game. We saw Mazraoui, we saw De Ligt in a little bit of a cameo, we saw obviously Joshua Zirkzee in a goal-scoring debut. So we have seen these new players come in and be effective for Manchester United. How important do you think they could be for this game? Yeah,
massive. I've spoken about this a lot, that those players that we've brought in aren't necessarily the best in their position, you know, or who we've got in the squad. Mazraoui isn't necessarily United's best right back. Zirkzee isn't necessarily United's starting centre forward. De Ligt probably isn't better than Martinez. But they're all players who are far better than the alternatives were last year.
Yep.
And that's massive. You need players who can come in and do a similar or better job than the person they're replacing, depending on circumstances. There are things that Zirkzee can do that Højlund can't. There are things that Mazraoui can do that Dalot can't, or certainly that Wan-Bissaka couldn't. And there's definitely things that De Ligt can do that Camboire, Casemiro, or Johnny Evans potentially can't do. And I think that's absolutely massive. And I think we'll see them play a lot of games this season, and we'll be able to rotate more because the rotation isn't a massive drop-off. That's massive. Like last season, I know Martial was barely fit, but even if he was, the play we'd seen out of Martial for the previous 3 years tells us that you can't risk dropping Højlund for him because you won't get a good performance. You know, whereas now you can risk dropping Højlund for Zirkzee. You can risk dropping, Yoro or De Ligt for each other. You can risk dropping Dalot for Mazraoui. People can be rested and rotated without this terrible fear that United's performance is going to drop off by 30% in that area. That's a massive thing for winning games across multiple competitions. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I am as well, and I think you make a good point. And it's nice as well to see like players that have come in and already have sort of hit the ground running, because sometimes with signings we've seen it, and I know you can't look too much into a debut, but we have seen it. We saw Wout Weghorst never score a Premier League goal for Manchester United. Joshua Zirkzee took 20 minutes or something to get off the mark. You've seen defenders. I saw Patrice Evra have an absolute stinker on his debut. Mazraoui comes in and has a very good game. So it's good to see players that are coming into Manchester United and just showing us a little bit already. Obviously, you can't look too much into it, but it is a bit of a relief to say, you know what, these players have come in and they're not been overawed by playing for Manchester United, or it's not going to take them ages to really settle, because we can see already they feel at home, which is it's good to see. You mentioned Brighton, obviously. It is a big test. We have a patchy record away at Brighton. We've won some, we've lost some, we've won one after the final whistle went when we thought we drew. It's just been a bit of a weird fixture for Manchester United, hasn't it? We know they're a very good team. We're going to get into them in a minute, but this sort of test now, Fulham at home, I feel like, despite the fact we lost it last season, it's a game where you can't look too much into it. Manchester United should be winning that one, and if we win it, you don't go, well, this is it. Last season's league form doesn't matter anymore. We've cracked it. We're great. Yeah. However, I feel like if you get a result away at Brighton, people can sit up and take notice of that a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think it was Everton they beat, wasn't it? Comfortably.
Was it 3-0, I think? Was it?
Yeah, 3-0. United's away record last season, won 8, drew 3, lost 8. Terrible. You can't be losing as many games as you win at any ground at any point in the league for Man United. It was awful. It was, the home form wasn't much better, but drawing and losing more games than you win is awful. So we need to start to put that right first of all. But I think they're a good side to face, Brighton, because they're a good team. They've got a new manager. They're doing things similar to how they did before, but maybe even slightly more aggressive. Saw some of the screenshots and videos from their high line against Everton, where Everton have got the ball basically in line with the centre circle, and Brighton are still on the halfway line. And we saw last season at times where when we've got those ball-playing players in there, Bruno Fernandes, Mason Mount, Eriksen, as it was the year before last as well, playing over those high lines, and we'll get into the predicted 11 shortly. United have got great players to capitalise on that. And we need to be able to see, a Brighton side who are decent, but let's be honest, they're not Manchester United. And we should be able to, at some point, control a game like this and beat a team like this. And I think they're a perfect test, as it says above, because they're good enough where you feel really good if you beat them, especially away, but they're not so good that United are getting this test too early. If this was City away or Arsenal away, I'd obviously be, panicking a little bit, but I think that we can sort of ease into this slightly different system that we're playing, new players and get an impressive win without it being the biggest test in the world. I mean, it's going to be tough, but I do think they're a good level of side to face.
No, I agree with that. And this is kind of what you want from the start of the season. I know it'd be nice to just have loads of easy games, but you want a game where, to start with, Fulham at home, that's pretty comfortable. Yep. And the next one is a little bit more of a test. And then obviously we've got Liverpool on the horizon, which is going to be an even bigger test. So you can sort of see the trajectory of the games getting sort of tougher, which is not the worst way to start a season. With all that being said then, give us your predicted 11. This is the team you think will start against Brighton. Yeah,
I mean, I think I've brought De Ligt in. I think it's slightly harsh on Maguire because I actually thought he was excellent against Fulham.
He was.
But I do think that Ten Hag will want De Ligt to be picked above Maguire eventually, and I'm assuming that he'll start that this weekend. I can easily see that switching back and that being Maguire in there. The fullbacks kind of have to stay the same because no one else is fit, and obviously Martinez keeps his place. I don't see any reason to change that midfield three, especially to start with. Mason Mount's pressing, whilst it was probably his best trait, and you need to be better on the ball than just running about. But I think his pressing will be helpful against Brighton. If they're playing this really high line, he's also got good one-touch passing and football in there. You swap him out for a McTominay, who's not very press resistant. If he's receiving the ball off our defence, McTominay, I don't trust him to turn and find someone else in the same way I do with Mason Mount, so I think he has to play. And I've gone with Rashford and Garnacho up front. I think the good thing about Ahmad and Garnacho is that they do things differently. And this is a game that suits Garnacho. If Brighton are playing a high line, we need to be able to capitalise on that with quick counter-attacks. Not necessarily sitting back and pushing on. You can counter-attack high up the pitch. But if they're playing a high line, Garnacho and Rashford are two of the best counter-attacking wingers in the league. Playing balls in behind, balls over the top, their speed, their directness, their willingness to shoot. We saw it the other day. I know Garnacho fluffed his lines in the end, but that high line we exposed and got in behind, thanks to a mistake a little bit from Fulham as well. But Rashford and Garnacho, I think, suit this game more than Ahmad does. Unless we want to play high possession, keep the ball stuff. But I would assume we're going to be trying to expose their weaknesses and get the ball quickly over the top and through. And I think Garnacho and Rashford are perfect for that.
If they are going to have Garnacho and Rashford up top, I think they need to. They've been a bit rusty, haven't they, to say the least, both of them. In terms of, especially like linking up, we saw it in the Community Shield. I think Garnacho plays in Rashford, he hits the post against Fulham. It wasn't a perfect pass from Marcus Rashford by any stretch of imagination, but I still thought Garnacho would have scored, and he didn't. Scored. Yeah, so I just feel like if that is going to happen, we need to see these two sort of combining a little bit better, being a little bit more effective as a two, or just as striking colleagues.
Yeah.
I get where you're coming from. It all makes sense. I could see Erik Ten Hag sort of definitely going with De Ligt. My team isn't that dissimilar.
Okay.
I think Joshua Zirkzee will get a start
because of the goal.
And I thought his performance was all right against Fulham. It seems to divide opinion. I saw a few people saying, I don't think he played very well. Or he didn't do. I thought he did. I thought he was all right. I thought he was like a bit of a breath of fresh air when he came on. And you could see we needed an out-and-out striker. We needed someone like that. I know you can play Marcus down the middle and you can maybe have a false nine with Bruno, but I just felt it looked so much better when you have someone like Zirkzee. He wasn't just his goal, which I thought obviously was well taken, and that's what you want from a player in the box, getting on the end of things. But I also thought his link-up play was decent, and I'd like to see him start, and I think this is now is the opportunity as well. Because I think if you start him now, then he could start against Liverpool as well. I don't think you'd start him against Liverpool. I don't think he needs to be a substitute. I think you start him for this game, and I think he should be ready because he's played 20 minutes. He's had a full week between the games. We played on the Friday. This is on the Saturday, so he's had a full week of training. So I think he can be ready, and I think he should be starting.
One question I would have about your lineup, and obviously you got a lot of stick last week, even though 10 of your 11 lineup.
10 out of 11 for me is probably the best I've ever done, and I was getting absolutely hammered because I thought he would drop Diallo. I thought, right, my thinking was Mason Mount is going to start. He's going to start Mason Mount. He's going to start Marcus Rashford. He's going to start Bruno, Mainu and Casemiro. So who's going to make way? Yeah. Now, I chose Diallo to make way. He chose Garnacho to make way. That was my sort of mistake. This time round, I still think Mason Mount will start. I still think Mainu and Casemiro will start. I think Rashford will start. And I think...
but you've dropped sort of Garnacho. I know he didn't start, but you're not picking Garnacho or Ahmad then?
No, because I think Zirkzee comes into the team.
Yeah.
And I don't think he'll drop Marcus Rashford.
No.
This is the thing that people get on. Well, Rashford should be dropped. Fine. You might think that I don't think he will drop him. That is my point. I don't think he'll drop Mason Mount. And I think if Zirkzee starts, someone's got to make way. So who is it? That was my point.
It's not Bruno.
No, Bruno's not going to get dropped. I don't think he'll drop Mason Mount. He can't really drop Casemiro. He's our only DM. He shouldn't, and he won't drop Kobe Mainu. So who does make way? That is my point, and I get the idea because people were just sort of saying, "Well, Garnacho should start, Diallo should start." Right, fine, but who's getting dropped?
Who isn't
then?
starting?
Yeah, that's the issue you've got. And I think in terms of predicted 11, I don't think he will drop Marcus, and I think he will bring in Zirkzee, and I think obviously Bruno Fernandes is going to start. So that is why I think it'll be Diallo who makes way from the starting 11 we saw against Fulham. But in terms of what you said defensively, yes, Maguire had a very good game, but I think De Ligt comes into this side, and I think he's done enough just in that cameo to show that he's ready to start.
Yeah.
He is, and that is a little bit harsh on Maguire because I thought he did very well, but now is the time. You're going to start him. Start him now. You're not going to start him against the Scousers. I think he'll start now. Obviously, Mazraoui looked good, and Delo at left back. It's not ideal, but he can play there. So I think that's what he'll go for. Get involved in the chat in the comments and let us know your predicted 11s.
Also, send us your prediction videos as well. Get your phone out. Film yourself, giving us 30 seconds to a minute what you think the score is going to be, what you expect from the game. Send it to paddockmatchday@gmail.com and we will use you at the start of the build-up to the watch-along. We get all of those predictions in their little montage at the start of all of our fan predictions. So make sure you send that into paddockmatchday@gmail.com.
Let's talk about Brighton quickly. Very good result on opening day. 3-0 away at Goodison. I think the help was Ashley Young got sent off, but they still do a good value for the win. I think they had 62% possession. Danny Welbeck, the greatest player who's ever played for Manchester United, was man of the match and got a goal as well.
Blimey.
So we're up against it.
Shame he never did that for United.
The Bernabeu. Are you forgetting about
Was
that?
he man of the match?
Well, he scored a header.
In a game that we lost.
We drew. Go on.
Same thing. Their manager's 31 years old, which is my age, Jay.
And mine. That's so weird. That is just bizarre. Everyone
in
is
2009.
31. Actually, in 2011.
Yeah. Fabian Herzl, he seems to be playing similar stuff to last year. Obviously, we're not going to know exactly what's going on with him until we've seen, maybe give him till Christmas before you can get a full sense of what they're doing. But he was born in Texas. Did you know that?
I did it at Houston, where we've been.
Exactly. Houston, we have a problem. And then
Nice.
he immediately, when he was very young, moved to Germany, which I think he needed. Because for some reason...
Based on what, your extensive knowledge of his personality when he was a baby?
Well, if you let me finish instead of interrupting me...
He needed that. He was getting in with a bad
say.
crowd in the kindergarten. Go on.
For some reason, America is pretty much the only country on the planet where football fans, especially British football fans, are allowed to immediately rule out the football credentials of anyone from that country and say they are clueless idiots and just do a piss-take accent and say things like soccer ball, and then everyone laughs and retweets it. There's no other country in the world where you can say, if you're from this country, you know fuck all about football. And yet, with America, everyone is so happy to do it. So he's lucky he's got a European-sounding name and he grew up in Germany. Because if he was American with a Texas, with a cowboy hat, he's fucked. He's never getting this job.
It's daft as well. It's like people have never heard of like Chris Armas or Ted Lasso.
Right.
Like, do you know what I mean?
He's done the thing I said that people do. Unbelievable.
Like, there's loads of great American.
Ted Lasso's a fictional character.
But he's a successful
And Chris
one.
Armas is just the word Christmas, but separated a little bit.
Mate, him on that laptop under Ragnick, he was a genius. Yeah, that's the side we should have had. Right. With all that being said, then give us your score predictions.
I think we're going to win. Tough game, 2-1. Thank you very much. Header from Casemiro and a stunning strike from 2 yards out from Marcus Rashford.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you saying?
I think we're gonna have an 8-goal thriller.
Oh, fuck's sake.
4-4. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's going to be goals of plenty. There's obviously going to be goals when Danny Welbeck's playing. Zirkzee's going to get involved as well. Show him he's the new sheriff in town. Yeah. So I think, there'll be loads of goals and we'll draw.
4-4.
Yeah, why not?
You don't believe because you don't believe that.
Mate, are you forgetting West Brom away in Fergie's last game? That was 5-5.
That was 12 years ago. With a different manager and a different team. I know. I'm not saying 4-4 has never happened.
Are you forgetting Spurs against Arsenal? Are you forgetting Newcastle against Arsenal back in the day?
One of my favourite games that I ever watched on teletext. That
exactly.
Newcastle were 4-0 down, and they just went dink, 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 dink. Fantastic stuff.
Exactly. These things happen.
Then that's your genuine prediction.
Yeah, I take this very seriously. Get involved in the chat in the comments and let us know what you think the score will be. Let us know your team predictions as well. Also, don't forget, we are going to be here for the watch-along. It's going to be me and him for the watch-along. Early kick-off. We can't wait. Bring it on. That's been Joe Smith. I've been Jay Moy. This has been a preview of Manchester United's trip to Brighton. Thanks for watching.